So part B, the compulsory questions. So question number 5A. What is the concept of constitutional morality given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar? Now this particular thing related to again polity, nation polity, those to that chapter, and this thing coincidentally has been in the news as well. The recent judgment and Chief Justice of India, Deepak Mishra, he also talks about constitutional morality. But before also at different points of time, this particular term has been used. Now, what do we mean by constitutional morality? And again, how do we ensure constitutional morality? Just following a constitutional morality or is it something more than that? That is what has to be mentioned in this particular answer. Here, constitutional morality means core principles of constitution has to be adhered to. There has to be some effective coordination mechanism by which the conflicts between the people can be addressed. There should be a way by which the administration can ensure cooperation among people having divergent interests, and you can come up with some amicable solution. Everyone agrees to that. And then you're not just limited to following the constitutional provisions literally. You have to go beyond as well. And constitutional morality is something which can ensure the full development of someone's personality. An individual can enjoy to the fullest, can develop to the fullest. Full personhood will happen because of it. And again, commitment to inclusive and democratic political process in which both individual and collective interests are satisfied. That is also another aspect of constitutional morality. All these constitutional values, they will fall under it, the rule of law, social justice, etc. But to ensure all these things, we also have to have a responsive, sensitive state apparatus. So for this, what is required? The parliament, it has to be truly representative. The executive, it has to be responsive. Responsive means there is a requirement you have to respond immediately. And it has to be empathetic. It should be able to understand the actual grievances. The judiciary, it has to be vigilant, it has to be empowering. So what do we mean by constitutional morality and how can you ensure this thing? So this is what B.R. Ambedkar talks about related to constitutional morality. Next question, construct a sociological narrative on the increasing trend of child abuse in India. So you have to construct a sociological narrative. Again here, you should understand what is child abuse. Then you can give the reasons why there is an increasing trend for child abuse. And again, you can also divide these reasons into broader categories. That can also happen. So, but you should know what child abuse means. Child abuse does not mean only child sexual abuse. Child abuse can refer to emotional abuse, it can refer to physical abuse, it can refer to economic abuse, it can also refer to sexual abuse. And again, this abuse is directed at someone who is below the age of 18. That is child abuse. Again, this can be a matter of contention, whether it is 18, whether 14, whether 16. So we are taking the broadest category, 18. Now, what can be the reasons for child abuse? One of the reasons can be conflict between parents, neglect of children can be another reason, child-parent relationship, they do not share that affectionate bond, alcoholism among the father, generally the father, male member. If the female mother is having illicit relationship, again that can be abusive for the child. In some families, they have found that stepmother, the way the stepmother treats stepfather or mother treats the child, again it can lead to abuse. Social isolation of a family. Family is socially isolated. So again, the child might suffer from some sort of abuse. Child, if it's working somewhere, again, those who are in the age category 15 to 18, they can be employed in different kind of occupations, not necessarily, but again, these are the occupations which should be non-hazardous. So sometimes these working conditions, the environment, it can lead to different kind of abuse. It might be non-hazardous, but again, other forms of abuse can be there. If young girls, they are lonely, they are away, they are isolated, they can be more vulnerable. Poverty can be another dimension. There are different studies which point to the fact there is a correlation between poverty and child abuse. Sometimes within family, the relationships might not be cordial. Sometimes abuse is transferred over generations. The parents right now, they were maltreated when they were kids. So that can again impact the present child. So the same thing is being transmitted to the children now. Also, the judicial processes, they are not effective. Since judicial processes are not effective, they are not immediate. So as a result of which, many times people do not feel like registering these cases. So in case there is non-registration of cases, it leads to perpetuation of crime. So there are many reasons why people do not report apart from this reason. Sometimes this is considered taboo. It is felt that these kind of instances, if it is reported, family honor can get impacted. So they are not reporting. So if families do not report this case, the judicial processes will not come into play. And again, there can be perpetuation of this thing. Apart from that, our institutions, for example, healthcare institutions, police institutions, police officials, they are also not they're also not sufficient, or they're not also trained enough to handle these kind of cases. Also, people do not trust government agencies. Confidentiality should be maintained, but sometimes you inform these cases, you register these cases, but confidentiality is not maintained. And another very big challenge is these kind of incidents, they happen within the households, and easily evidences can be removed or evidences can be tampered with. Because of all these things, child abuse perpetuates, it continues. And one more thing, in recent times, the factor for increase in trend of child abuse, maybe this increase in trend is because of increase in reporting. So in case if it is because of increase in reporting, it is a positive thing because it points to the fact that the stigma associated with child abuse is somewhat decreasing. So especially child sexual abuse. So these can be different factors related to child abuse. Also, you can try to divide these factors. When the question says sociological narrative, so again you can divide these factors into different categories. For example, institutional factors. Okay, some of these factors that we discussed here, institutional factors, factors within the family, okay, factors outside the family. So that way you can divide the things and you can create a narrative. So this is a pretty straightforward question, but importance has to be given to the keywords here, and importance has to be given to the meaning of child abuse. It is not just sexual abuse; it has other forms of abuse under it. Next question: explain the dynamics of neo-farmers movement in contemporary India. Neo-farmer movement, and you have to talk about dynamics. So as I told you, when we talk about any movement, you have to talk about certain issues. Okay, certain dimensions have to be met. So what we are talking about here is what was the reason, how it is emerging, what are some of the instances, okay, who is providing leadership, what are some of the organizations which were involved, what is the final impact of these movements, and what were some of the inherent contradictions or some challenges in these movements. Now, neo-farmer movements are different from peasant movements. Keep that in mind. What is the difference between farmer movements and peasant movements? You should be knowing that. Now, when we say neo-farmer movements, how it is emerging? It is emerging again late 70s, 80s. That is the period where it is emerging. There is a crisis in agriculture. The terms of trade when it comes to agriculture is not good. The input prices are high, and the income from agriculture is not that good. So all these things is leading to some sort of uprising among farmers, some sort of discontentment which is leading to this farmer movement. Now, who are the organizations which are playing a very important role? In Maharashtra, Shetkari Sangathan, so they are talking about the prices for onion, regulatory prices for onion. In Karnataka, Karnataka Rajya Raita Sangha. In Uttar Pradesh, BKU, Bharatiya Kisan Union. These are the organizations which are spearheading this movement. Now, because of this movement, what is happening? There is this sudden shift in the paradigm. Now, at the level of the national discourse, this farmer movement, farmer issues are being highlighted now. Farmers are now becoming the center stage of discussion. Policymakers are now forced to recognize the deep-rooted crisis that is there in agriculture. This also helps the farmer to be part of an international movement against globalization, imperialism, and capitalism. So different voices are being raised at different forums against globalization, against imperialism, and against capitalism. How all this is going to integrate all the supply chains and how the farmers can get impacted in the process. So now they are also getting integrated into this. But what was the consequence of these new farmer movement? They have not been able to bring about radical transformation. The class structures in society have not changed, and there were many internal conflicts, contradictions. They were not able to overcome that. That is the reason they could not spread beyond a particular point. They did not have any radical agenda. For example, they are not talking about radical land reforms, and they were not much concerned about those sections of farmers who are more marginalized. So some among the farmers were more deprived. They're not talking about it. It was primarily the rich market-oriented farmers. They were the ones who were talking about it. And since they're not talking about the issues of marginal farmers, they're also losing out on the social basis. And they were primarily confined to those localities where you have these rich market-oriented farmers. So there was this movement, and they had their own internal contradictions. They did not go for. They're not changing the class structure of the society. Massive land reform, massive radical reforms, where land reforms have not been taken up. They're losing out on social base. But one more thing is happening because of these new farmer movements. It is leading to emergence of a rural elite. Farmers are now coming to the center stage. Many national leaders we are getting as a consequence of farmer movement. So that was again another important contribution of new farmers movement in contemporary India. Next question: assess the role of state in promoting education of the girl child. This question is a fairly simple question. You have to look at some keywords. First thing, what is the role of education? Okay, so again here you can talk about multiple things. How education increases your life chances, how education helps you gain skills, how education broadens your mental horizons, how education has a lot of significance for the entire society, for the entire economy. Okay. Now, second part, what is the relevance of education of a girl child specifically? If females are educated, again, it improves their economic status, it improves their social status, it improves their decision-making skills, and the kind of respect they're given within the family. All these things changes. So it can also lead to gender equality in the long run. Apart from that, if you're not educating the girl child, then you're losing out on valuable resource. So significance of education and significance of education of the girl child. Okay, you should know that. But why should state play a role here? Why state has a role? What kind of role the state has when it comes to education? Why should state provide education? Now, education is a merit good. Merit good means those goods which have a lot of positive externalities. So if the state invests in education, there are a lot of positive externalities. So that is the reason state should have a role in promoting education. And if they're promoting the education of the girl child, even the positive externalities will be even more. So state should play a role in promoting the education of the girl child. How it is doing that? What are the different schemes, different mechanisms? You just all these things you can mention. For example, Right to Education Act, you're providing free education. Under the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, you are creating infrastructure facility so that the girl child does not drop out, hospital toilet facility, etc. You're promoting mid-day meal scheme. So all these things. Apart from that, you have different conditional cash transfer schemes. If the girl child attains or completes this much of education, some cash is provided. Then you have these Beti Bachao campaign. Under that, you have the Sukanya Samriddhi scheme. So you are giving high rate of the interest rate is very high, and the money can be withdrawn for the higher education of the child. So different schemes are there, which is incentivizing the parents to send their children to school, girl child to school. But again, what are some of the issues right now, present status that also needs to be mentioned? For example, almost we have achieved universal enrollment. That means almost all our girl children are attending schools, but the problem is with the high dropout rates. That needs to be addressed. And what are the reasons for high dropout rates? That we need to find out and need to address that. Maybe it's lack of infrastructure facilities. Maybe she feels unsafe. All these different dimensions needs to be addressed. So you can easily write a well-rounded answer for this question. Next question: elaborate the Me Too movement and its impact in India. So this Me Too movement, see when this exam was there, at that point of time, this thing was quite there in the news. But yeah, maybe definitely the question paper would have been said before that. But coincidentally, what is happening? The same thing has become extremely significant now. So while you're writing the exam, some of the dimensions, especially its impact on India, the kind of impact it has happened, the kind of impact has been there in the last few days as we are discussing this, might not have been the same at the time of writing the exam. Okay. But you can nevertheless we can discuss what has been the recent impacts. Okay. So this Me Too movement again, divided into a couple of parts. First is, what is this Me Too movement? Since we are talking about movement, we need to understand what is the key issue that is being raised. What is the ideology of the movement? Who is the one who is participating here? What is the organization? Who's providing the leadership? What are the impacts of this movement? The last part. Okay, how it is impacting India right now. So first thing, what is this Me Too movement? What are the issues they're talking about? It is talking about sexual harassment. It is raising awareness about sexual harassment, against sexual assault. And they are talking about the unsafe work culture that exists across sectors, not only one sector or two sectors. Across sectors, there is an unsafe work culture. Women feel more vulnerable in this work culture. There are predators. They create a very toxic environment. So this Me Too movement is talking about that. It is talking about the power asymmetry that exists. Men, they are more powerful. Women, less powerful. So that power symmetry also exists within these organizations. And multiple sectors, there is it's spread across multiple sectors. Sectors like media, mass media, academia, everywhere they're talking about it. Hollywood, it started with Hollywood actually. Okay. So these are the issues, and this is the spread. Which are the sectors? Next thing, what is ideology? Again, it's a women's movement. Women are asking for equal spaces, equal workspaces. It is a movement against discrimination. It is a movement against sexual exploitation. It is also a type of economic exploitation. It is a movement against that. So all these dimensions are there. Okay, this is the ideology of the movement. Next thing, what is the method that is being employed in this particular movement? Here, what the victims are doing is they are naming and shaming the perpetrator. So I was Me Too. That means I was also one of the victim of this person. So they are outing the victim. They are naming and they're outing the perpetrator. They are naming and shaping the perpetrator. How they're doing it? They are using social media. Hashtag Me Too is used, and they tell their story. So this is the method being used. Now, who is providing organization and leadership? This is more of a diffused kind of movement. There is diffuse nature. Any person can come and express herself for whatever she has had to face in the past. And this entire movement is centered to the survivors. Survivors themselves tell their story. But there have been instances in which some women have been collating the stories of victims. The victims themselves do not want to be identified. They're afraid of the repercussions, so they are not giving their identity. Rather, they are approaching some other women. These women are collating it and they're putting it online. In case of India, this has been one of the prominent things. In fact, it started like that. So that way, some women have given some direction to this movement. Apart from that, it has also been observed that most of the women who are publicly shaming and naming the perpetrator, they are these people who have or who do not have the fear of any repercussion. Those who are coming out in the public. So generally, women who have achieved or who belong to the higher classes, who have achieved something, and they're not afraid of the repercussions, they are the ones who participate. Not everyone has participated. Okay? So that is again one thing which is very specific to the Me Too movement that we are seeing right now in India. As I am recording this session, maybe things might change in the next few days. We don't know. The way it has escalated, but at present that is the scenario. So what has been the impact here? Now this has led to a cultural shift. Previously, all these things were ignored. They were all kept under the brush, under the carpet. Now, since they are raising these issues, people have also started to listen. When people are listening, people here means not only women, it is the men. They are also listening. Organizations are listening. So organizations have also taken up different kind of stands. They have taken up action. They have it has impacted many of these commercial deals that these perpetrators were having. So that has happened. Many of the organizations have also brought about their own safe work culture practices. They have brought about their own guidelines. That has also happened. So this can be an attempt to create safe workplaces, equal workplaces, a workplace where women can work without any fear. It also gives a voice to the marginalized. It has given the marginalized among the survivors. Some survivors were there who were extremely marginalized. They could not have raised their voices in any other form. But now they are also getting a voice. But at the same time, there have been some criticisms as well of this particular movement. There have been instances in which some have, under the mask of anonymity, frivolous charges have been there. So in that case, what will happen? It can derail the Me Too movement, these fake cases. Sometimes it can be also used to settle political scores. So the movement will get derailed. So those who are the genuine victims, you are doing injustice to them if you are entertaining frivolous charges. So we need to ensure that that doesn't happen. Okay? And in case of India, you can give ample examples from Bollywood, Alok Nath and Vikas Bal, from the government, from politics. Again, you have examples. You have ministers against whom allegations have been there, from journalism, from media industry. So all these places you can give concrete examples that has been coming out in the last few days. So this is about Me Too movement and what can be its potential impact on India. Next question, choice optional question, 6A. How do you relate the growth of development of metropolis and its impact on mental social life of the people? So 2 parts: growth and development of metropolis. Second again has 2 dimensions: how it impacts social life, how it impacts mental life. Both the things we have to talk about. Now, one thing here, when we specifically talk about these dimensions, things, especially the impact on mental life, George Simmel, so German sociologist, he has written about it. So this question relates to that, metropolis and how it impacts mental social life. So that those dimensions should be mentioned in your answer. Now, first part, what do we mean by growth and development of metropolis? How a metropolis grows? What are the reasons? What can be some push factors? What can be pull factors? What can be some internal factors which can lead to the development of metropolis? Push factors means why people from adjacent areas are pushed towards a metropolis. Maybe the structures over there, rural areas, they are not functioning appropriately, economic opportunities are not there, etc. Because of it, they are pushed. But at the same time, there are different opportunities, extra opportunities being provided in metropolis. There is a chance of economic mobility, social mobility. There is a chance of diversification of jobs. There is also a chance of taking up multiple jobs at the same time. So all these things leads to emergence or development of metropolis. All these factors you can just briefly mention. Now, next thing, what is a metropolis? How does it? What are some of the features of a metropolis? Okay, there is competition. The density is more as compared to other cities, other towns. Packed people. The metropolis is packed with people. There is enforced proximity to strangers. You don't want to be this near to a stranger, but since everyone has to be accommodated in the metropolis, the density is very high. There is this enforced proximity, and then there is this frequent combination of crowds and isolation. Some areas it is heavily crowded, and the next moment you're going to some place, there is isolation. Housing, they are also densely packed. There is this huge density. There is deprivation, there is poverty, there is unemployment, and then the different dynamics, race, religion, caste, all these things play. So in a metropolis, all these things are there. Now, how these features of metropolis have an impact on your social as well as mental life. Now, how metropolis impacts the social life, how kinship patterns are impacted, how relationships between individuals are impacted, how a migrant who's coming from a village to a metropolis or a smaller town, whether he's able to maintain relationships, the past relationships that he had, whether he's able to form new relationships, the ties are getting stronger, weaker, what is happening over there. So how it impacts kinship patterns. What is the impact on women specifically in metropolis? They might have better economic opportunities, but again, there are other threats. Maybe safety will be a concern. So those aspects are there. What is the impact of metropolis on women? Then caste and class dimensions, specifically with respect to India. In case of India, caste in metropolis again would have the significance would have gone down. Class is more important a factor. Individual achievement orientation, status motivation. These are the key things in a metropolis. So class has replaced caste now. But one more thing, but caste still remains an important factor when it comes to marriages. In personal relations, caste still dominates. In the public relations part, it is the class which dominates. Okay. But at the same time, there are certain occupations, even in urban areas, metropolis areas, which is reserved for certain castes. For example, sweeping, scavenging, these kind of positions are still there in these metropolis. So that is again only for certain. Only you'll find people from certain castes are dominating these, are prevalent in these kind of occupations. So that dimension is still there. Apart from that, in a metropolis, how is the cultural life impacted? How cultures are coming together? How there is this amalgamation of different culture? How there is this melting? How some metropolis are referred to as melting pot of culture. Again, not necessarily everywhere there will be a melting pot of culture. You can also have a mosaic of culture. You might also have a salad bowl of culture. Melting pot of culture means all cultures are coming together. They're mixing and they're forming a new culture. Salad bowl of culture means the cultures. People of different cultures are there, but they all retain their identity. They remain separate. And there can be this mosaic of culture as well. Different cultures are there. They're held strongly by some other element, maybe the state, the legal mechanisms. So all these impacts we see in the social life as a consequence of development of metropolis. Now, what is the impact on the mental life? So first thing they say, there is this blaze attitude of a city dweller. So city dweller has to have this blaze attitude. They have to develop it. What do you mean by this? Blaze attitude means this attitude of indifference. You have to remain indifferent. So many things are happening around you, and again, this entire city, it can engulf you. So you have to keep certain difference. You have to remain indifferent. So you should not be just carried away. You should not be part just completely. You should not get lost in this entire milieu. So you have to develop a blaze attitude. That is what is experienced in metropolis. Now the metropolitan personality tries to reduce emotional responses. You meet so many people. You cannot have emotional reactions to everyone. You cannot create that emotional bonds with everyone. In metropolitan areas, it is more of the relations have to be maintained in a transactional manner. Formalization of a relationship takes place. So the emotion has to be restricted here. Now, metropolitan life is also characterized by exactness. It has to be precise. Okay? That means your interactions have to be precise. The idea of time is very precise. You have to be punctual. You have to think of everything in terms of minutes, hours. You cannot think in terms of days or months. So you have to reorder time and space. There has to be punctuality. There has to be a flow of things. You have to develop new ways of relating socially to one another. Also in metropolis, there is a clear distinction between what is public, what is private. That may not be the case in rural setups. The traditional forms of economic, moral, religious lives, they might become undermined. New structures come up, and these things get undermined, especially these religious, moral dimensions. Rationalization is more important a factor here. Also, another thing that has been observed, many studies point to the fact that in metropolis, there is this higher prevalence of mental illness. Maybe because the way the city, again here there are different theories. Some say that those who are more likely to fall mentally ill, they are the ones who are driven to the city. Or maybe another reason, the interaction with the city has an impact on their mental life, which can lead to greater mental illness. So you need to address all these dimensions. Start with what is the growth, what do you mean by the growth and development of metropolis. The next part is what are some features of metropolis. Then the major part, how mental and social life both are getting impacted. And this is something referred to George Simmel. Again, you can go through Simmel's readings. Next question, has green revolution led to the formation of a power elite in rural India? Elaborate your answer. Now in this question, you should know what is green revolution, what were the features of green revolution, how these features of green revolution are bringing about changes in the economy and the society, which is in turn leading to creation of a power elite. It has led to a creation of power elite, and we will come to that, how it has happened. So first, you should know what is power elite, what is green revolution, what are the dynamics here. First, what is a power elite? Group of people, small in size, but they are dominant. They have a privileged status. So from the this is from our readings for a sociology paper. Now the next dimension here, what is green revolution? Green revolution requires some changes in technology. High yield variety seeds were utilized for the first time, and again high yield variety seeds cannot be used in isolation. You need to provide pesticides, you need to provide fertilizers. You should have an extensive network of irrigation system. Now, green revolution also meant shift from subsistence farming to commercialized agriculture. Previously, farmers for their so that they're able to get 2 square meals a day, they were farming, but now they're moving towards commercialization. They are now moving towards the markets. This is increasing productivity per hectare yield. At the same time, it is increasing output. So just think about it. If you are going for commercialization, if productivity is increasing, or if output is increasing, it will lead to wealth creation, affluence. At the same time, it is disrupting the power structures. Agrarian opposition parties are coming into play. Until this point of time, till late 1960s, the entire polity of India was dominated by a national party. Now what is happening? Multi-parties competition starts. Regional parties, they are now coming into the picture. Democracy is getting deepened. In rural areas also, people have now started participating in the political process. Previously, it was restricted to the urban elite. Now, this is green revolution, but how green revolution is leading to the formation of power elite? Now, who are the ones who are becoming the elite now? See, because of green revolution, there is increase in income. Because of green revolution, why there is increase in income? Because there is increase in production, there is increase in productivity. So it is basically benefiting the middle peasantry who are wealthy. Generally, they are these lower intermediate caste farmers, and they were previously politically excluded. Now they are politically excluded, but they are getting money, and this money they can use to finance their political mobilization. So money for participating in politics is also coming because of it. Now, but what is the reason why they want to access power? Because there are instances in which people become wealthy, but they don't access political powers. Not everyone who is rich wants to stand for elections. But here, people are becoming rich, but they also want to join politics. What can be the reason? See, one of the reason for the success of green revolution at that point of time was the prevalence of high yield variety seeds. Now these high yield variety seeds were costly, and the other inputs that were required, the seeds, the fertilizers, the pesticides, all required some sort of subsidies from the government. Now, again, if there is a bumper harvest, okay, output has increased, there is a bumper harvest, it can lead to crashing of markets, the price will collapse. So in that case, you need to have some control over the market prices. Apart from that, these procurement prices, they have become a key political issue. Now they want to control it. So how do you control the price of these products? How do you control the subsidies? How do you control the price of the final output? How do you control these procurement prices? So for all these things, you need to be in the government. So you need to be in the state government to decide these agricultural policies, or you need to be in these local bodies, which also have a significant role to play in distribution of these resources. That is the reason these people who are getting benefited or getting financially benefited because of green revolution are now participating in politics. And as a consequence of which, this countryside, the rural areas, becomes hotbed for political mobilization. One more thing, caste also plays a role. Caste-based associations also play a role in this. And it is leading to creation of many leaders at the national level. So at this from 70s, 80s onwards, you see many farmer politicians at national level, Chaudhry Charan Singh and people like that. So green revolution is leading to creation of a power elite in rural area. Okay. You can mention all these dimensions. Next question, a 10-marker question. Write a note on basic services to urban poor and integrated housing slum development program. See, these two schemes, again, not frequently in the news. Quite old scheme, not recently launched scheme, not frequently in the news, but they have asked it. So we need to be prepared for these kind of questions as well. And here one thing you can just note, they're talking about urban poor. And the scheme itself talks about certain things. It is talking about basic services, it is talking about integrated housing and slum development. So from this you can, even if you don't know exactly what this scheme is, you can have a rough idea what the scheme implies. So it is targeting urban poor. So the main aim is handling urban poverty. Second thing, it is talking about providing some basic services which poor require. It is providing the housing facilities, but these housing facilities are integrated. That means some other facilities are also provided with housing. So what you can indirectly say is, what could be some of the basic features of these schemes? So housing and developing infrastructure projects, providing different basic services. What are some of the basic services? You can mention that. Now, next part you can say why these schemes have been introduced and what can be some of the problems, challenges in these schemes. Now, what is the reason for these schemes? Target is urban poor. That means urban poverty. And the approach here is you are providing multiple services. See, poverty is multidimensional. To target poverty, you should have a multidimensional approach. Only providing some income or only addressing one dimension will not solve the problems. So, if you need to handle poverty, you need to have a convergence of services. Health, education, sanitation, all these things should be provided, apart from providing skills, apart from providing employment opportunities. So, just remember what we have covered in poverty, how poverty is multidimensional and how do you tackle poverty. The process by which you can remove poverty is liberating people from the chain, the process of impoverishment. So, you need to liberate the poor. So, for that, you need convergence of services. That is what they're trying to do. So, multidimensional nature of poverty is being addressed through all these things. And what are some of the challenges in these schemes? So, again, for this, I had to do a little research. Because these schemes are not there in the news. So, what you can say, you need to provide services, basic services, and it has to be provided to everyone. So, emphasize on universalization of services. Ensure that there is participation of people. Beneficiaries should be part of the process. Stakeholders should be part of the process. If stakeholders are not part of the process, generally the schemes are not that successful. Good governance also talks about participation of people. So ensure that they are participating. They should be they should contribute to the process. There should be satisfaction of these beneficiaries. There should be regular feedback. Ensure that there is proper funding to these schemes. The schemes are not left in between. It should be completed. Apart from that, in the planning process also you should include them. And many times there is this poor quality and design of construction. So again, that can be a hindrance. Ensure that poor quality of and design of construction should not be there. And once it has been constructed, ensure that you have a mechanism by which regular operation, regular maintenance is carried out, preferably with the help of the community. That way, these schemes can be improved further. These are some problems we had found. It needs to be improved further. So again, question slightly out of the blue, but you can answer it provided you have some idea about urban poverty and you have some idea about what can be the basic services required for poor. So this is the last part of 10 pointer.